Ladies and gentlemen, people of the internet, welcome back to yet another episode of Crypto Over Coffee, and I hope you are doing well today. If you're new here, every single Friday I break down the latest news and the hottest topics in the world of technology and cryptocurrency whilst drinking a cup of delicious coffee. Now in today's episode, we're talking about Bitcoin and Bitcoin's price, as always, Cardano Stake Pools, Ethereum 2.0, and of course, our usual 404 Logic Not Found segment. But before we get into all that, let's kick it off with questions from the community from YouTube and Twitter. And if you want one of your questions answered, please do leave them down in the comments below. I pick some every week, or just tweet me at Hashoshi4. And if you would be so inclined, before we get started, please do subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification button down there next to the subscribe button so you can get a heads up whenever I post new content here on the channel. Thank you. Now, the first question of the day is from Matt Periuk. I hope that's how you pronounce your name. My apologies. What blockchain should I use if I want to create my own token and a dApp that stores event records, maybe 10 kilobytes of data? Cheap, fast, and easy to work with. That's a great question. So I think in terms of the ease of use, the ability to easily build out this dApp, Ethereum is probably a good option. The caveat is it ain't going to be cheap to use, especially if you're trying to do this in a mainnet. If you want to do it in testnet, obviously it'll be completely free for the most part for you to do that. But in terms of a mainnet blockchain that you could do this type of thing in, I would say you should take a look at Solana. I think that would be a great scalable place for you to give this a try. I think also you might be able to do this same sort of work in Elrond as well. I think Elrond has some potential when it comes to dApps that are cheap to operate and starting to build out an ecosystem of decentralized applications. So I think Elrond is an option. And then also go take a look at Zilliqa. Their language, their scripting language, Scylla, is a little bit more limited and it isn't Turing complete. Actually, a lot of languages aren't Turing complete. But ultimately, Zilliqa does have that scalability, that low cost, the ability for you to implement this. But then there are also some other blockchains if you want to actually store files, like Filecoin, like Storage or Storage. I don't know how you pronounce that. So you might want to look at that, maybe integrate the transactional part or the dApp part on Ethereum and then use Filecoin or Storage for the actual event record. So if you have any further questions about this, feel free to send me an email. It's pretty widely available, or just send me or tweet me. I'm easily reached on Twitter. All right, second question is from Jordan Fader. Great video like always. Thank you. I was wondering what your thoughts are on blockchain games and what you'd like to see implemented in the games. So if you watch my channel at all for the last, year or so, I've made quite a bit of content about gaming and blockchain games in these Crypto Over Coffees especially. I think that gaming is going to be one of, if not the sort of catalyst for adoption of digital assets in the form of cryptocurrency or blockchains. And why that is because I think that naturally gaming is starting to move away from you get a game, it has a storyline, you might get these sort of arbitrary rewards for doing something in the game, like completing the story mode in the hard setting, right? But it's now shifted towards having a game where it's a maybe 5, even 10-year life cycle where you play that game. There's new content added to that game. You collect items, you collect things, you play against others. And there's sometimes even actual resources that you acquire throughout that game. So like the old days of RuneScape and these massive multiplayer online RPGs, right? I think that's kind of where gaming is going again. And in that, I think having the ability to bridge the game world to something, a little bit more extensible, you can own the things that you own in the game in a crypto wallet, right? You can use non-fungible tokens, or basically crypto collectibles, as the main means by which you issue and collect items in a game. That means you can also have secondary economies built around games, where if I get this really cool randomly generated Fortnite skin in the game, then I could sell that to someone else for cryptocurrency, right? When I'm done playing the game, or if I want to trade it so that I can buy other items. So there's all sorts of stuff that you can do with gaming. And I think, things like chain links, verifiable random functions to help generate these different non-fungible tokens or give them to people on a random basis. There's so much out there that could be done, and I can only scratch the surface when answering this question, but I think gaming is going to be huge and blockchain games are going to be huge, even if they are not built with the scripting language for the blockchain, right? You don't have to have your game written in Solidity. Actually, you can't really. So I think it's going to be this integration between traditional gaming engines and gaming studios and open source blockchain networks. Thank you for your question. We have a next question from Gon or John Santos. Not sure if that's how you pronounce your name. Hopefully it is. How are transfer fees defined on ETH and BTC? So this is a great question. It's a fundamental one. In Bitcoin, we'll take that example first. They're basically, this is highly simplified, but let's take it from two high-level criteria. The first is congestion. How many transactions are in the mempool? How many transactions are coming in? How many are, not making it into blocks, right? That's a factor, right? The cost of a transaction to get it mined quickly is more when the network is more congested. That's because proof of work, miners need to be paid and incentivized to pick up your transaction and mine it into a block, right, on that interval. The other side of it in Bitcoin is your sort of not the base fee, but the fee for your transaction is derived from its size, the transaction size. And so there's a calculation, and I could probably either link it down below or show it here on the screen. There's a calculation based on the actual size in bytes of the transaction that you can then convert from Satoshis into the Bitcoin measure, and then you can convert it then to whatever fiat currency you're in to figure out what your transaction would cost. But it's based off of the storage space that your transaction will take up inside the precious block space within Bitcoin. Now in Ethereum, it's still very similar because it's resource based, right? Your transaction is going to trigger an event, basically. It's either transferring Ether or it is invoking a method on a smart contract. All of these things have defined costs in gas on the network, which are convertible to, or I guess paid in Gwei, which is convertible to Ether. Now what that means is that when you issue a transaction, multiple things are happening. One is you're paying gas for the operations that your transaction is going to trigger. If that's a transaction of Ether, smart contract invocation, all sorts of things. There's also the size of the transaction, right, in terms of its operating capacity, what it's going to take resource-wise to fulfill that transaction. And then there's also the congestion element of it, right? The more transactions that are in wait, the higher the congestion is on the Ethereum network, the more you're going to have to juice up your transaction with gas to then ultimately have it mined. And so if you've been using Uniswap lately, if you've used basically any Ethereum dApp lately up until, I guess, the last week, you're going to probably have experienced exceptionally high transaction fees. And that's because the demand is outstripping the supply in terms of gas that you can execute within one block. So what that means really for the comparison between Bitcoin and Ethereum is that Ethereum is very much so focused on the resources it takes to execute a transaction. Bitcoin is more focused on the actual space in a block in terms of storage space, if you wanted to go really simplified base layer. So thank you for your question. That's a great one. And then the last question for the day is Fervid Writer. What sort of advice would you give a friend who wants to get involved with crypto but doesn't know where to start? The first place to start would be to go online and start reading about the Bitcoin fundamentals, read the white paper, read the Ethereum white paper. It may be totally dense and it might make no sense, but I think if you go in there and you start to pick out the little pieces that resonate with you, and maybe it doesn't resonate, right? If you read those papers and nothing sounds interesting, nothing sounds revolutionary, you don't think that the world might need technology like this, then crypto just might not be for them, and that's okay. So I think the first place to start is to figure out if it's something that you are indeed passionate about, because that is the most important part. If it is, then I think there's plenty of resources on YouTube. I'm not saying my channel is the only place to go, right? There's plenty of channels out there, but YouTube's a great place. Even, I know people have their issues with, the major news outlets, the CoinDesk, the Cointelegraphs, all of those, right? But I think there is something to be said for going there to keep abreast of what's going on in the space, understanding that it is biased because it's online media. I think that's another place. And then secondarily, as kind of angry and terrible as it is online a lot of the times, Reddit is also a fantastic place to go to learn a lot of things. There are a lot of really brilliant people on there, even if they are not the nicest people. So hopefully that answers your question. If there are more suggestions, please do leave them down in the comments below. For those of you who are new here, every week in partnership with the folks at Cobo who make that awesome Cobo Vault wallet, I'm going to be giving away a Cobo Tablet Plus Steel Seed Phrase backup device in every episode from here on out. And all you have to do to enter the random draw is to comment on the video down below, and I'll pick a random winner each week. And just for transparency, the product itself is only available in the US, Canada, and Europe. So if you win and you're in other regions, I'll send you some Bitcoin instead. But the winner of last week's giveaway is shown here on the screen. You'll see the random draw. So that is a big congratulations to the winner. And of course, I will be in touch via the original comment. And with that, let's dive into the news. And as we always do, let's start the day with some Bitcoin news and price analysis. Now, last week, I said it was unlikely that we see much positive price movement as a result of the election and other uncertainty in the economy, and that the stock market would be what really signals Bitcoin's price. Well, here we are sitting here, I guess, on Thursday night, Friday morning, and ultimately Bitcoin is broken well above 15K. It's looking like a full bona fide bull run. And my predictions have yet again been proven that they are evidently as accurate as hitting a fastball with a blindfold on. And that's just kind of the way it goes. Bitcoin is an unpredictable beast, just like the rest of the world is. Now, the real test going forward is going to be when that circus that is the US election is over and the stock market fantasy shakes out. Where does Bitcoin go? Does it tank completely? Does it keep riding higher? Is it correlated or uncorrelated to the stock market overall? Those things will be indicators for me going forward. And of course, the maximalists are all over Twitter saying, either way the election goes, Bitcoin wins, which again, I don't even need to address how stupid that is. If the sun rises, Bitcoin wins. If the sun sets, Bitcoin wins. If the moon is seen in the sky, Bitcoin wins. We get it. The maximalists love Bitcoin and believe in it long term, but it's just getting obnoxious the way that it's like everything is good for Bitcoin. And I love Bitcoin, but I'm also not that deluded. Well, I'm not that deluded. Anyways, in other news, a famously Bitcoin favorable Senator Cynthia Lummis was just elected to the US Senate in Wyoming. And this is significant not only because it's a lawmaker that actually understands the concept of what Bitcoin actually is, which is rare enough, but also because Lummis publicly expressed her ownership of Bitcoin and how she first procured it in 2013. In other words, Lummis is sort of an OG in the space. And I did also notice references online to tweets that Lummis has reportedly made that said she wishes to protect Bitcoin from encroachment from governing bodies. And I don't have that exact reference, so that's paraphrasing, but it's very, very interesting. Now, I mean, Wyoming is already one of the more Bitcoin-friendly states and is invested in the study of digital assets and blockchain with formal research centers set up for academia to help drive the study and potential adoption of the technology broadly. So overall, it'll be interesting to see if more and more candidates and respective congressional seats are filled with crypto-friendly or at least crypto-educated individuals, people who get it. Because I think that understanding the technology and its impact on the world and how positive it could be is really the only path towards eliminating the fear of this technology within governments around the world. That's something that needs to happen. Now, I also wanted to talk about one particular Cardano Stake Pool that in many ways is just a really awesome mission, and it's one that I think needs to get more attention and delegation aimed towards it. So if you're an ADA holder, please do listen up. That stake pool is called the Kind Pool, K-I-N-D, with the ticker symbol of the same, K-I-N-D. And the stake pool is run by a community member, Cedric, who has been pledging to donate 25% of the net proceeds from the pool to charity. He's also offering a $100 reward to one randomly selected delegator out of those who do delegate to the pool every single month. And finally, there's also a monthly bonus reward tier for big delegators who contribute 500K to 1 million ADA to the pool. Now, my favorite part of this whole structure and the way that this pool is put together is that delegators are given multiple opportunities to earn lucrative rewards outside of the standard staking rewards you're going to get just for doing your part in staking. And B, The donation to charity from the proceeds is just a really sustainable and nice thing to do. It's a mission that I really resonate with. And at my request, Cedric donated $50 to the Surfrider Foundation for the very first donation from the pool, which helps protect and clean our oceans and provide places to enjoy the splendors of our oceans. And splendor is just one of those words that you don't hear very often, so I had to use it. If you're an ADA holder and you haven't yet delegated, or you're looking to diversify your delegation, I guess you could say, please do check out the Kind Pool and see if it's something that you're into. I'll link the site up down below so you can do your own research on it before you decide. And remember, less saturated pools tend to offer more upside for delegators. This is a new pool, might be a good opportunity. Now, in other news, crypto Twitter erupted into a bullish frenzy when rumors began to swirl about the Ethereum 2.0 deposit contract going live surreptitiously earlier this week. Now, this was later confirmed by many of the major Ethereum researchers and foundations, and of course, all of the major mainstream outlets that report on cryptocurrency news. And it revealed that the target launch for Ethereum 2.0's beacon chain, so the new main chain, if you will, is slated for December 1st, 2020. Of course, this also means that those who wish to commit their 32 ETH or Ether to be validators on the new Ethereum 2.0 network can deposit, and permanently deposit, I might add, to that deposit contract to effectively migrate their ETH to the new network when it does launch. Now, this is the catch, I guess. In order for the launch to actually happen on time, 16,384 deposits of 32 ETH must be committed to that contract at least a week before December 1st date for launch. Now, if that doesn't happen, the launch will be pushed back until that threshold is hit. And that's over 500,000 ETH, so that's no small amount that needs to be committed. So the goal from here on out in November, I guess for the next 3 weeks, is going to be garnering that commitment of ETH to the deposit contract. And my fear is that people are going to be immobilized by that first mover fallacy. No one wants to be the first one to commit their 32 ETH and risk a major delay when they can't get their ETH back and the network hasn't started yet. Now, I don't blame them for that, but what that could result in is major delays in launch and many pissed off people who are missing opportunities to sell ETH if it pumps during the lockup, which it looks like it's doing now. Now, I hope that doesn't happen, but it's a distinct possibility where that date can't be hit because the deposit limit isn't hit. Now, I'm also a bit concerned about the overall understanding around the community about what this launch actually is. This launch is not actually the full Ethereum 2.0. This is like the first layer of the cake, no icing. Just the new network, the core consensus mechanism, etc. There's no smart contract functionality, there's no sharding, there's no rollups, there's none of that. None of that is there. It will largely be a useless network for a long while, besides for the basic ability to stake and earn rewards and prove out this proof of stake consensus mechanism. The real deal Ethereum 2.0 that we can really transition to in full and run dApps on, in my mind, is at least 2 to 3 years away. So please understand that when you approach this current period of Ethereum 2.0 hype. Regardless, I'll be following this closely and I will let you know if I find any updates. Now, it is time for 404 Logic Not Found, and for those of you who are as of yet uninitiated in this little firecracker of a segment, I highlight notable tech-related fails or otherwise stupid moves in the world that just need to get some attention. And speaking of attention, if you want to help this video that you're watching right now get some attention from the YouTube algorithm, please do hit that like button and get subscribed, because it tells the YouTube robots that you're enjoying what you're seeing, you want to see more of it, and other people should also see it. So thank you so much for that in advance. And I think what we're talking about today is pretty apt given the current situation. Now, with all the drama that's going on in regards to the US elections and the completely predictable and obvious delays in counting the votes given the current situation in the world, many notable figures have taken to Twitter to express their support for blockchain-based elections and voting. To name a couple, Vitalik Buterin, the co-founder of Ethereum, and CZ, the CEO of Binance, have expressed this on Twitter and social media. Now, at face value, this makes total sense, right? A blockchain is an append-only immutable transaction network that offers true finality, easy verification of data, and a clear historical audit record in that canonical chain. So it would, again, at face value, make perfect sense to think that, oh, we just record votes on a blockchain where they can be signed with a valid private key. We can be sure that no one votes twice, we can count it in real time, we can transparently validate it, and all that jazz, right? All the selling points. You get that. However, when you look at the actual problem set that elections present, namely ensuring that only citizens with a right to vote can vote, proving that a person in the physical world actually only voted once digitally, right? No one took someone else's phone or stole someone's private key and then voted. And the ability to scalably process the 100+ million transactions with adequate finality within the span of time an election runs. Those are just a few of those issues. See, I take issue with the thought leaders in the space making these bold claims and implying that blockchain is a blanket solution to this problem, because it categorically is not. The dangerous part of them making these claims is twofold. Now, first, it further propagates the misconception that blockchain in and of itself is a solution to large-scale problems. And second, it ignores the supreme nuance and technical complexity that it would require to actually build a functional blockchain voting system that's capable of passing the necessary regulatory scrutiny for even a county sheriff election. It's not that easy. My entire career is predicated on the success of blockchain as a technology for positive change and positive impact on business and society. So trust me when I say, I would love to see this happen. I would love to see blockchain used to fix the proverbial landmine that is our legacy voting system. But it just is simply not that easy, and to minimize it the way that it has been on Twitter the last few days really bothers me. Now, to those same individuals begging for blockchain voting, are you also in a huge rush to have a nationwide mandated KYC check that will link your private key for this voting blockchain to your identity or your passport or your ID? Are you excited about biometrics being linked to that KYC profile and private key? My guess is that the answer is no. Now, when you're paying $52 for a Uniswap trade on a DeFi meme coin this week because Ethereum is too congested to modify an integer value within a smart contract, do you think it's going to be able to process hundreds of thousands of votes per day? No. So both of those things are concerns. Now, the reality is that it's nice to dream, it's nice to talk about, but to go online and to minimize the monumental challenge that this would be to build by tweeting, oh, we should just do elections on the blockchain, makes little sense to me. It's actually something that causes more unrest than anything else. And I would love to see the major players across the variety of competing projects in this space, the Algorands, the Tezoses, the Ethereums, the Binances, etc. I would love to see them come together to come up with an actual architecture capable of doing this. That move I would applaud. But right now, given the complete lack of thought given to this concept, it's a 404 logic not found. Now, I also wanted to give a huge shout out to Brave Browser, which, as you know, I am a big fan of, and I've been evangelizing it for over 3 years now. And the reason for the shout out today is that Brave's recent report on growth of the platform showed a 130% increase in monthly active users and nearly the same increase for daily active users. Now, this brings the total number of users to over 20 million in the monthly active users and 7 million in the daily active users respectively. And that means that every month there are 20 million active users popping onto Brave's browser. Now, compared to the industry juggernauts like Firefox or Chrome, for example, there's still a ways yet to go. But Brave's growth trendline is promising for a browser that is largely the antithesis of modern browsers. It's privacy-centric and it's Web3 friendly. Now, for me, I think that Brave should focus on converting Firefox users over to Brave. And the reason I say that is because Mozilla has had some troubles as of late, and there's been some funding issues over there. And there are likely a large number of users of Firefox that are looking to find a browser that serves their needs. So I would be very much so someone who has my fingers crossed for continued growth in 2021 for Brave. Now, I also saw recent reports in Europe pointing to a group of large companies in Spain, including the powerful Santander Bank, that are working on building out a self-sovereign blockchain-based digital identity solution for consumers. Now, this particular solution is aiming for a summer 2021 launch to production and would likely include a digital wallet-based identity attestation system by which users could selectively share their personal information required for banking transactions, for applications, and etc. directly with the entity that's requesting their data without having to relinquish control of said data altogether. Now, one of the big issues is that today data is stored repetitively by different entities. And one of the biggest challenges here is how can we replace that data storage process with something a little bit more privacy friendly? And one of the biggest challenges of digital identity overall is creating a solution that doesn't replace one privacy and security disaster for another. And it's no secret that banks, governments, and companies store way too much personal data about their users and customers, and each new account that you make opens you up to new cyber risk profiles of data leaks. However, moving towards digital identity solutions requires very careful architectural design to prevent a user's digital wallet from being misappropriated or stolen. And the initial linkage of a private key to KYC is also a tough one to achieve securely. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think the world's going to have to first move away from the archaic way we do KYC today first before this could become a reality. And yes, there are ways to ensure that money laundering and other economic sanctions are enforced without foolish and foolhardy invasive KYC measures. That is a tongue twister. It's just a matter of actually implementing these strategies. I, for one, am a staunch believer in zero-knowledge proof technologies that are potentially solutions to this. You can prove that you meet criteria without ever exposing your actual data. Now, earlier this week, you might have also heard about $1 billion worth of Bitcoin that hadn't moved in years starting to move. And I wanted to say that I think we now know why that is happening. Reports coming out recently indicate that the US Department of Justice is moving to seize funds in relation to the Silk Road dark market that operated in the early 2010s. There is, as of yet, no detail or confirmation of who in particular moved these funds or who owns them, but we now have an indication as to where they came from, what they're related to, and that they must have moved in response to scrutiny from law enforcement. Now, this is all top to bottom a very nebulous story, and there's not a lot really known or confirmed, but it's very interesting to think about, and it would likely be one of the most voluminous and large asset seizures in history if it does come to fruition. So we shall see what happens there. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for today's Crypto Over Coffee. I want to thank you so much for spending time watching my content. As always, I really do appreciate it. If you have time to stick around, I will link up a video from my channel here for you to watch if you're interested. But as always, folks, have a fantastic weekend. I'm wishing you and your family a safe and happy one. And until next time, cheers.